to the 80% Catholic in the Philippines and to all the claimants. This letter of Pope Benedictus and Pope Franciscus serve as a clearance and authority of 777 Morning Star, the only sole signatory of the divine wealth, accounts, and assets.
Yes, there is gold. There is marvelous gold. And plenty of it. Fine at last, Part4, known only to the high heaven of Credit Suisse and other Swiss banks, because the bank's secret law is ordered by my President Ferdinand Edelin Marcos. To my beloved countrymen, God-loving people who love the ultimate truth, we have to finish what we have started to unveil the stories about the lost cause and hope. But to my listeners directly today, it's also your responsibility to love, care, and caring the people is your responsibility also to share, subscribe, and click to the Juris TV. So, we have to continue what we have started. Meanwhile, the Arab agreed to finance the daring plan with billions of petrodollars.
Happen.
Unfortunately, just about the time the Arabs were to deliver the money, some globalists operating in UK, United Kingdom, learned about it. This forced them to flee to the US only to be arrested. In September 1986, they went to bankruptcy court. In the Swiss criminal code, the criminal aspect of divulging banking secrecy was determined. The principles and limitation of banking secrecy law, however, remain undefined. Typical of the Swiss mentality, the confines of banking secrecy were left purposefully vague. After all, they would argue, if it is at all feasible to reach an understanding without writing it into law, let us do so. Some may surely say, if the Vatican enjoys Swiss connection, why can't Rome get its lost fortune directly from the Swiss bankers? There is a 40 years period within which another country may claim treasures taken from by another country. This period lapsed in November 1985. The 11 monarchs of Europe syndicated a deal involving over 120 banks with the Banks of England as a lead bank to buy back some of the gold. The 12 Asian countries conjured and plundered by Japan in World War II want the gold. They believe they have to stake in this as it was their countries, that the Japanese took it from the United States of America, want some of the gold. The U.S. had virtually no gold of its own to begin with. I repeat, the U.S. had virtually no gold of its own to begin with. They need it back up their currency and to stave off economic difficulties. It was Benjamin Disraeli, British Prime Minister 1874 to 1880, who said, "The world is governed by men, very different personages to what is imagined by those who are not behind the scene." Later, U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was to confirm this by stating that nothing accidental even happened in politics. Still, many of our scholars, many of our constituents ignore this warning and continue to believe in the accidental theory of history, dismissing any information to prove otherwise. As a consequences, these are mal-educated politics, robot of scientists and historians do not enjoy. The broad database for serious study and evaluation and going on behind the scene. Domestically, what is written into the federal fiscal law stipulate that the bankers are obligated to testify in cases involving bankruptcy and criminal proceeding. It is further stipulated that under certain circumstances, the bank may also have to furnish information in action involving debt, collection, and inheritance. The obligation to furnish information in civil proceeding is dependent upon which canton has jurisdiction in the case. But before I continue, let me greet you a pleasant day to each and everyone, especially those present today. Internationally, the legal situation governing banking secrecy has evolved in very quite different contexts. The limitation of banking secrecy are quite easy and dependent on the number of political and economic factors. Abrogation of Swiss banking secrecy in the international context is achieved through mutual understanding of the court, the government, and the bank as to what constitutes justifiable infringement of the right of the account holder. This exposes those claimant nefarious activities should serve as a stern warning to those among our countrymen who are tasked to secure the Marcos fortune. The revelation more than adequately demonstrates what are the capable of doing would be bullshit. No wonder Philip Habib in 1986 was in hurry to get Marcos' signature. Affixed on that documents would ensue the turnover of the people treasure to the Trilateral Commission. Like what happened to Shah Reza Pahlavi of Iran. And a German bank Shah was in perfect health when he reached American shore and was held in protective custody by the State Department after his ouster from the peacock throne. Shortly thereafter, he mysteriously died. And whatever happened to the Shah, personal fortune estimated to be billions of dollars. U.S. Congressman Larry McDonald went to Khomeini to negotiate the release of American hostage. The Ayatollah had agreed to set up of the hostage home on the condition that the U.S. Solon guaranteed a congressional investigation to look into relationship between Shah and the U.S. later must have stumbled into something hot. His son Perez with 300 other passengers of Korean Airlines flight 007, which was hit by missiles. No one knew what happened next. Only Chase Manhattan Bank ended up being the official custody of the Shah's fabulous fortune. It is no wonder the Iranians are all anti-American. This elite group was commissioned by the government of Britain, the U.S., and the France to disperse the Nazi gold to its rightful owner. The International Court of Justice perception of 40 years ended in November 1985 when the former Filipino strongman refused. He suffered the same fate as the Shah. My countrymen, the countries of Europe want the gold. They believe much of it there is to begin with. They want or need it so much. They are willing to buy some of it back. Marcos shipped large stock of gold to the USA. He allegedly committed to sell 300,000 tons of gold to the U.S. government. Obviously, the Asian countries and the European would look with displeasure at this if they knew about or could prove it. They have evidence that at least 2 major sales were negotiated with the CIA and the U.S. Treasury. Frank organization sometimes in 1983 to 1985 under the code name of YAP 42. Now I will reveal it to you that YAP means that is Mr. Big, but was apparently aborted because of difference in payment term. The U.S. offered 20% in cash and 80% in U.S. government securities. Marcos wanted 80% in cash and 20% in securities. The amount involved is staggeringly very much high. Since they cannot touch the gold of the brilliant lawyer, the U.S. officials were trying to convince Marcos to conclude the deal in Hawaii sometime in 1987. Failures coming from their front organization, we, the Mahalicans, allegedly have gold sitting in U.S. depositories, which the U.S. government wants very badly. They reportedly cannot release their new rainbow dollar or the multicolored dollar bill that is already printed but without the gold back it up. Before anything else, we wish to emphasize that the testimony is not to criticize anyone. We want to divulge the ultimate truth. So it's up for you to subscribe, share, so that every citizenry will know the truth. But simply focus on the power that this alien group hold over this country. They are very people who claim to have given us our freedom and democracy, have forced us to pay heavily for their parasitic way of life, living like vampires, unable to exist on their own without having to suck the blood from their helpless victim. We are victimized with our Uncle Sam. Crisis such as the present global crisis developed because government and their population have persisted in the police opinion much too long. By Lyndon de la Rue, the only exemption to the rule is the rare case in which the crisis was caused by natural catastrophe, which reasonable government might fairly argue that is not been equipped to have foreseen. That exemption granted. All other crises, like the pandemic, are man-made. Let us have this wise word before one-word government with their single currency transform this planet into a global concentration camp. The odds, of course, are very much stacked against us, simply because we have a natural knack for not getting our act together. Many of our countrymen keep on claiming without a proper documents. The really opposition exploit the clink of our armor to the hilt. Help to compound the problem. Can anyone count the number of paid CIA and the U.S. State Department have operating in and out of our government. In fairness to the CIA and U.S. State Department, no doubt, it is all part of their job to protect American interests. In what any American citizen would likely to do, but where do our national interests come in that Filipino have to protect also? As Christian and Muslim, it is incumbent upon us to support the power that be, as long as they are under duly constituted authority and do not cause us to do things contrary to our professed faith. But these hidden hands do not want us to follow what our religion teaches, since it leads to a nationalistic mindset which diametrically opposes that of the New World Order. This they have demonstrated many times over as we witness the rise and fall of our patriotic leaders. For example, the historical tapestry of RP-US relations in outright disagreement substantiated by the outbreak of this 3 years war in which 250,000 Filipinos lost their lives and properties in an unequal struggle. These hidden hands imposed on the President Manuel L. Quezon, they urged him to submit absolute allegiance to their cause by joining the secret society of conspirators. The very chief executive of our land declined to accept the offer because he feared that joining their cause may force him to act contrary to the interests of our own Filipino people. I would rather see this country run like hell by Filipinos, was stingingly replied. Short thereafter, the Philippines found itself dragged into terrible war orchestrated by this 21st century leader. The secret of Pearl Harbor was that the Roosevelt gang knew well in advance of impending Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, but did nothing to prevent it. The information was relayed by Brigadier General Elliot R. Thorpe, who was then the chief of the counterintelligence under General Douglas MacArthur, but he was not taken seriously. The devastation suffered by millions of Filipinos was too much for Quezon to bear. He died at the U.S. Army Hospital mysteriously. Same with charismatic mechanic from Zambales, Ramon Dagay Magsaysay, whose dreams is making the Philippines great nation, upset the timetable of the globalists who secretly supported the hook forces of socialist subalternas like Luis Tarut, Jesus Lava, and many others. Magsaysay well-trained intelligence unit broke the back of the communist movement. He, like Quezon before him, had to go away. On his way to Cebu, on board of the presidential plane, Mount Pinatubo, the aircraft mysteriously plunged into the mountain and crashed. today. Our country still feels the rep from the continuous assault of the one-world leader whose latest concocted nobility in the Philippines sure is the People's Power Revolution. In 1986, led by the Troika of the Init Corazon Aquino, the wily Cardinal Sin, and all-assuming West Pointer Fidel V. Ramos under Cory's aimless leadership, the Philippines became the basket case of Asia. Naturally, the socio-economic holocaust was never properly presented to the rest of the world by the globalist-controlled media. Instead, what was printed was vibrant post-Marcos nation, which would soon be transformed into the tiger by the year of 2000. Unless our people are told of danger which lurk around the corner, there will be no political resurrection for the future generation of the Filipinos, only never-ending subjugation by China, the dragon of the East. To unveil the iniquity, known exactly what I knew of the events surrounding the preacher visiting the late strongman on his last few days in Malacanang. If you want to know the truth, please subscribe, share, so that all our young generation will know exactly what happened. Undisclosed information that there was a secret operation plan to oust my president, Mr. Marcos. And that men like Jose Concepcion and Ayala were being used as a conduit to access the smooth flow of funds to finally bring an end to the Marcos authoritarian government. The involvement of Cardinal Jaime Sin, there is, of course, a cardinal sin. There is a venial sin, but this is too much. A cardinal sin. This is too much to bring the Filipinos into the clutches of apathy. Cardinal Jaime Sin, whose role was to draw a large crowd of supporters and sympathizers in the event that the blocking force was needed. Sin is an expert Marxism. It was exposed by John Kuhlman, the violation of the Christian Church, that Sin Radio Veritas speak out communist propaganda in 13 languages all throughout Asia to destroy the word fiber in the large number of Catholics. Sin believed in the Marxism principle that religion is the opium of the masses. He exploited this tactic to the hilt and succeeded in what is now called the people's power. Mass action. He worked diligently to overthrow the government of President Marcos. The region enters into political system. He was ably assisted by former executive the World Council of Churches, Jovito Salonga. Salonga was brought back to the Philippines under the escort of U.S. State Department. It was an estimation of Salonga was to take Mrs. Aquino, and this Protestant will cut a deal with the Marxism New People's Army. This did not materialize because of Salonga's poor health. Coleman is correct. Another fellow Protestant fell in his shoes, Fidel B. Ramos, and he is quite successfully negotiated peace with the communists. How about the unceremonious ouster of Marcos from Malacanang Palace? That agent from Chase Manhattan Bank and other bank would forgive the loan and interest payment if they would. First, eliminate their national currency. Second, dollar dominate their new money system. Third, use a debt card system instead of currency system. Fourth, grant the international bankers the perpetual right over all our natural resources, not only our natural resources, but also human resources. Ferdinand Marcos of the Philippines refused to accept this condition and was deposed shortly thereafter. He was real hero. My president is brave and a heroic act, who did not allow himself to be a puppet of America. What matters is what the country regained the Marcos gold hold for the sake of our national survival. Those riders, however, may be expected to do everything in their power to prevent us, Filipinos, from realizing our dreams. That our nation will become the greatest nation in this planet Earth if we use the gold. So we have to unify, not to divide. Come to the kingdom of Maharlika and judge us in our labor. Although difficult to decipher due to the complicated names of account, trustees and nominees, interchanged into some instant, the accounts are not only located in US, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Switzerland, but also in other countries, especially in the 54 major central banks all over the world. Everything really hinges on the Marcos gold bars. The Trilateral Commission to its chairman, David Rockefeller, and members George Scott, were convinced that they have been conned by the President Marcos. This being so, the Trilateralists did everything to pressure him to destabilize his one-man rule, out his sources of funding, and even blackmail him with Dobby beams, apay. Maybe I do not know. If you ask me, Mr. Marcos has the first lady, I do not know how many ladies more. That I cannot tell you. A part of the globalist notorious activities were documented. Marcos eventually gave in to the globalist proposal for the snap election using veteran ambush interview. Clever as he was, Marcos did not reveal to the American that prior to his interview with the couple, he had already conducted a secret survey of electorate. Despite the adverse media hype launching against him, Marcos was confident of the re-election, but still, win or loss, the plan that they have to oust my president because of this gold bust. The real agenda was not the snap election. Rather, it was to persuade Marcos to sign documents attesting to the fact that his gold bars and other precious metal deposited in Fort Knox and other depositories of the world would be under the guardianship of the Trilateral Commission, and certain percentage would be given to the Philippine government in the form of investment loan for the World Bank. The document was subsequently hand-carried by U.S. Ambassador at Large Philip Habib, which Marcos refused to sign. The Philippine head of the state felt that the war loot, which was remolded in gold bars bearing the RP seal, must be given to the Filipino people. The American influence exerted during the snap election and their involvement in a walk-up of the computer workers, yung mga bakla, yan ay parte ng kanilang plano para palabasin na nandaya si Mr. Marcos Vietnam Red.